Another insane attack on free speech in California, a disturbing fiscal warning, and TikTok's depression problem. We're gonna break all of that down and much more on today's episode of Brad vs. Everyone, my new daily series where I cover politics, the internet, and all the other insanity that you guys enjoy watching me suffer through. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts, yada yada yada. Let me know what you think of the new series. And without further ado, let's get right into it and head over to California, because we've got some insane anti-free speech nonsense going down, shocker, at UC Berkeley. So this story is just going viral today, and it involves two professors from UC Berkeley who hosted some students at their home, and their event was hijacked and taken over by pro-Palestine activists, and now it sparked this free speech legal controversy. I'm going to give you my take on it, but first, for both sides and just for the basic facts, let's go to some local news coverage from KTVU.
It was a celebratory dinner for the graduating law students at UC Berkeley, scheduled for the last day of Ramadan, holy month for Muslims, and the first of 3 nights the dean and his wife were hosting students. Malak Anafe says her organization, Law Students for Justice in Palestine, was boycotting the dinner and shared this poster saying no dinner with Zionist Chem while Gaza starves.
We felt that this dinner was, a kind of disgusting and extravagant and lavish display of wealth that was already being funneled using our tuition money for this genocide.
In a lengthy statement, Dean Erwin Chemerinsky called the posters anti-Semitic, but said, "I felt that though deeply offensive, they were speech protected by the First Amendment." Despite the protest, Chemerinsky went on with the dinner, and Anafa and about 10 other students decided to attend. She began speaking with a microphone, and this video shows what happened next.
Please leave our house. You are guests at our house.
We were invited to the premises, and we would willfully leave the premises. So that had always been the plan. We had even done a criminal defense consult with the National Lawyers Guild, who, pretty much thought this was a pretty low-risk action.
The dean wrote in a statement, "My wife and I immediately approached her and asked her to stop and leave. The woman continued. When she continued, there was an attempt to take away her microphone. Repeatedly, we said to her that you are a guest in our home. Please stop and leave." As seen in the video, the dean's wife, law professor Catherine Fisk, is seen snatching the phone from Anafa's hand.
She kept on grabbing inappropriately at my breasts and kept grabbing in my shirt area, trying to tug and pull.
An action she calls assault and a violation of her First Amendment rights.
I was in pain and I was scared.
But the dean says his home is not a forum for free speech, adding, "Any student who disrupts will be reported to student conduct, and a violation of the Student Conduct Code is reported to the bar."
That was his private residence. The First Amendment doesn't apply in that kind of place.
Civil rights attorney Laurel Powell says Chemerinsky is respected nationwide for his work in constitutional rights and thinks the dean is well within his rights to remove a student from his property.
As soon as the dean and his wife, who's a law professor, told her to leave, at that point she was trespassing.
She also says it would be hard to prove the actions of Fisk are assault in a court of law.
It's hard to imagine why a prosecutor who has a lot of discretion to choose whether to prosecute any crime would attempt to prosecute this as assault.
If anybody wants to see the full footage of the interaction, I will link it in the description, the show notes for this video. But rest assured, that tiny clip that you see that the activists have edited and are circulating doesn't tell the whole story. These agitators were repeatedly asked to leave a private person's home, and they refused. And they're claiming that their First Amendment rights were violated. No, babe, that's not how this works. And you would really think that law students who are years into law school would know that. It's their home. It's their private property, a dinner where they invited students to their home. You don't have a right to occupy it, to stay there after you've been asked to leave multiple times, to hijack their private event. That's not free speech. That's trespassing. That's a crime. And for you to try to claim and weaponize free speech to support your illegal disruptive activity, is actually an attack on free speech itself. Free speech is their right to ask you to leave, their right to exclude you from this gathering if you're behaving in ways and saying things they don't agree with and they don't want at this event. Free speech is not you getting to protest and yell over people and disrupt events and invade people's homes. Oh, and you don't have to take my word for it that this isn't free speech. Nico Perino of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, our nation's top and premier free speech organization. Disclaimer, I do some freelance work for them. He had this to say. Protesters have every right to engage in peaceful, non-disruptive protest, but they do not have the right to go onto someone else's property, take over their event, and make it their own. And I'm sorry, but you are gonna have to spare me. This law student needs to spare me the insane victim bullshit she tries spinning in this news interview. She grabbed at my breast. No, she didn't. She was trying to take away the microphone after you'd been asked multiple times to leave and didn't listen and were at that point criminally trespassing. Your attempt to make this a breast thing, or she grabbed at my breast, is a really grotesque and transparent attempt to weaponize the real trauma of women who experience sexual violence over a situation that's totally unrelated to that. That is disgusting. And it wasn't assault, because even if those actions may or may not have constituted assault in another context, you were trespassing. A lawyer named Andrew Fleischman pointed out that in California, if someone is on your property and won't leave after you ask them, you can use reasonable force to eject them. Remaining on the property after being asked to leave is trespassing. So miss me with all of this victim bullshit. You were not assaulted, your free speech rights were not violated, you were checked after engaging in criminal activity. To be clear, I'm not even getting into the substance of the debate over Israel-Palestine stuff. I support the free speech First Amendment rights of both sides to have their voices heard, and in both cases, I've spoken out against attempts to censor or silence pro-Palestine voices and pro-Israel voices. But we absolutely cannot start indulging or enabling crazy activists who try to take over people's homes and private events. That's not free speech, and it's not acceptable. All right, up next, we just got a disturbing fiscal warning that has me really concerned about the state of our nation's finances. So we got the headline here from Fox Business that the U.S. national debt interest payments are now exceeding defense spending, according to the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan entity. To put that in layman's terms, the federal government now has more than $34 trillion in debt. National debt is so huge that the annual interest payments that taxpayers have to finance through higher taxes are now so big, they're taking up more of our money than national defense, which is supposed to be like one of the most basic and important functions of our government. The dramatic increase in the cost of servicing the debt is due to higher interest rates brought about by the Federal Reserve's fight against inflation. So I just threw a bunch of numbers at you, but I'm going to break it down really simple. Americans have heard for years about the national debt and why it's bad, and sometimes some hyperbole about how it's all going to come crashing down someday. But it actually has real consequences that are already affecting us every day. One of those consequences is the huge amount in taxes, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that we have to pay just to make the interest payments on the debt. And the second thing that's so important about this story is the reason the interest payments are ballooning. It's because the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates in response to our surging inflation that we saw over the last couple of years. That makes the debt we have more expensive to finance, leading to bigger interest payments and more taxes. So this isn't just an interest payment and national debt issue in isolation. It's yet another unintended consequence and unseen effect of inflation that's hurting the American people. And we have to hold our leaders responsible for that, because while I do believe that some degree of inflation was probably always going to happen with the pandemic and global supply chains, the Federal Reserve still printed trillions of dollars out of thin air, and both parties passed big stimulus bills. Then President Biden came in, passed another huge stimulus bill. All of that definitely made inflation a lot worse than it had to be. And that's not just bankrupting Americans at the gas pump and the grocery store, but it's also going to have so many unintended and secondary consequences like this interest payment thing. That's our econ lesson for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And now we'll move on to something more entertaining and a little more lighthearted, but actually this segment's going to get get a little heavy too, because it's time for Brad versus TikTok. So today we're going to take a look at this mega viral TikTok where a woman explains her lethargy and depression and talk about the fact that apparently millions of young people find this relatable.
Does anyone else not want to do anything, like, ever? I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to see anyone. I don't even have the energy to post a TikTok. That's why you haven't seen my beautiful face in a hot minute. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, babe, that's depression. And maybe it is, but I don't feel sad at all. It's just straight lethargy. I am so lethargic. I don't want to do anything ever. I want to lay in a comatose state in my bed for hours on end. Even my hobbies, the things that I like, K-pop, anime, reading, I don't care for them at all right now. And it doesn't matter how many hours of sleep I get a night, not even a little bit. I could sleep 10 hours at night, every night, and it wouldn't be enough. I still need more sleep. But of course, the one thing I do have energy for is eating. I'm eating good, but I don't want to go to work. I don't want to hang out with my friends. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do anything that's going to be, I don't know, good for me. I want to sit here like a depressed sack of potatoes that's not actually sad, just really lethargic. Is anyone else feeling like this? Is it seasonal? Is it just me? I have a psychiatrist. He has me on like 5 different medications. Doesn't matter what they put me on. I'm not doing anything today. And it's exhausting. I do nothing all day and I'm exhausted. And I'm exhausted from being exhausted. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, minus the sick. You know what I mean. Anyone else going through this?
So a couple quick things. How much energy does it take to post a TikTok? And I love how out of everything else, she still has energy to eat. She must be American. To be clear though, I'm not roasting this girl. I'm not making fun of her. I'm not pushing back on her. I actually have a lot of compassion for her and I feel really bad for her because things are not going well over there. What she's experiencing does in part sound like depression to me, so I hope she's getting the help she needs. I will say this though, I know you don't want to do anything, you don't feel like it, you don't have the energy, but part of that can be a self-perpetuating cycle. If you force yourself to go to the gym, that might give you more energy that then it isn't so hard to force yourself to go to the gym the next time. Same thing with visiting friends and getting out of the house. It can become a self-perpetuating cycle, and sometimes you have to use sheer willpower to override and just force through it and make yourself do these things even though you don't want to. You don't have the energy. It's not easy, but it is possible. Also, I'm no doctor, but 5 medications? You might be too drugged up, babe. And don't make any changes without talking to a doctor, of course, but some of those medications can cause lethargy and tiredness as side effects, so that it could actually be part of your problem. Anyway, it's not just this one girl though. I wouldn't be talking about it if it was just about her. I kid you not, millions of young people on TikTok found this video relatable to their personal lives. When I saw it, it had 1.3 million likes and countless millions more views. The entire comment section is flooded with people saying how perfectly this describes their life. And those comments have thousands or even tens of thousands of likes from people that agree with them. One person wrote this, very this, exhausted by life. Another person wrote FYP is FYPing, which refers to For You page and means that the algorithm is serving them up something very relatable. Another person said, OMG, I found my people. All those comments have tens and tens of thousands of likes from people who agree. Now, because this is TikTok, and this is actually one of the interesting things that often happens on TikTok, she did put out a response video after her first video kind of unexpectedly went mega viral. Let's take a look at that.
I'm using this comment to address a lot of comments, but first of all, if you think this is just laziness, you're an absolute baboon. And that's simply all I have to say about that. Secondly, a lot of people have told me to do blood work, and I have. My thyroid is fine, my B12 is fine, my vitamin D is fine, my iron is fine, I'm not anemic. But if you do struggle with lethargy and apathy, I do recommend you get your blood work done. Another thing that people talked about is the guilt. I have so much guilt over my lethargy and my apathy. I just sit here in my bed, rotting like an overgrown fruit, and I can't do anything, and I can't go see anyone, and I feel guilty about it. But one thing this video has taught me is that I am not alone in this. Video currently has 3-point-something million views and a ton of likes and a ton of comments. We're all going through it. Another thing a lot of people are saying is that I need to seek therapy, which you probably didn't watch my whole video if you're saying that, because I have a psychiatrist. But also, if you do struggle with lethargy or depression or anxiety, therapy is a good option. Now, the third thing, which I found really interesting, was people were talking about ADHD burnout. I do have ADHD. I was diagnosed professionally at the age of 18. So I was diagnosed 11 years ago before it was a trend. I actually don't think it's a trend to have ADHD. I think more people are just getting diagnosed because there's more awareness. But yeah, I started Adderall 2 days ago. game changer. I'm still lethargic about some things. It's still kind of hard to go to the gym, and it's still kind of hard to get up and go to work, but I'm at least able to do my chores, actually have the energy to respond to my friends' text messages. So yeah, I think I was burnt out. I mean, I think I'm still burnt out. But if you think you have ADHD, I don't think a self-diagnosis is enough. Go get diagnosed by a professional and see if there's anything you can do about it.
All right, so I don't have a ton to add to that response video other than to say that I'm glad she's doing somewhat better, but this video really concerned me. And I know I roast the TikTokers often because they say insane and stupid things, but I also really do feel for them because a lot of them are clearly not well, and a lot of just young people in general are clearly struggling. And I really think we need to talk more about that and figure out what we can do, because Gen Z is not okay. At least a significant portion of them just simply aren't. I don't have all the answers, but I do think it's important to approach it with compassion and empathy. Yeah, we have to call them out when they're wrong, and it's okay to laugh at them sometimes when they're just being peak ridiculous, but also we should have empathy for people who are genuinely struggling with what seems like very real problems. What do you guys think? What do you think of this TikTok, and do you think TikTok has a depression problem? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and comment, subscribe, yada yada yada. And now, before we go, I'll read a few comments from yesterday's show. Referring to my discussion of how NPR has gone woke and has platformed crazy things, like an author who says looting is good, one person wrote, "You got dangerously close to saying, quote, I don't want to hear anything I disagree with, quote. I, for one, am glad that I get to hear the argument that looting is tolerable or even welcome. I don't care that I don't agree with it." I wanted to respond to this comment because it actually made me think. It actually made me doubt myself and wonder if I'd gotten something wrong or if I'd misarticulated my position. Because, to be clear, I don't want to censor anybody or not hear extreme ideas like pro-looting takes from loony lefties. But that's different from me not wanting any taxpayer funding to go to a media organization that uncritically, without pushback or meaningful, fact-checking or scrutiny, just amplifies those ideas. I want to be clear, though, I do believe in engaging in extreme ideas. And back in 2021, I even emailed the author of that book, In Defense of Looting, and asked her to do an interview with me specifically so I could engage her on it. Of course, she never answered me. I just don't think that taxpayers should have to fund, and they do get some taxpayer funding still, although a lot of it's indirect, an organization that's going to do softball interviews and just promote extremism like that. That was my position. Not that I never want to hear these extreme ideas. I do appreciate the pushback, though, because you guys keep me honest, and I respect that. Another person said, I used to have so much trust and respect for NPR, it's really a shame how they've changed. Yeah, I got so many comments to this effect. Apparently, this is a feeling that a lot of people relate to. Personally, have never really been an NPR listener, but sounds like a lot of people relate to this. Another person said, and this is a reference to the segment I did on the alpha male podcaster who's got a girl pregnant, and a commenter said, that lady definitely got pregnant on purpose and is trying to shake the guy from Fresh and Fit down for cash in order to have the abortion. So a lot of people have that theory, and the short answer is I don't know if that's what she was trying to do, baby trap him or whatever. But what I do know is that it takes two to tango. Nobody made him, how to say this without YouTube getting mad at me, nobody made him put his eggplant into her kitty cat without a wrapper. He chose to do that over and over and over again, actually. And I don't think it's unfair for, no matter what her intentions were, us to expect a guy who's built his brand around holding people accountable to be accountable for the response of his actions. Next, a commenter said, and this is a reference to that crazy anti-racist TikTok I reacted to, well, yeah, a race grifter would want the term race grifter to be labeled racist. Yeah, I agree. I had a similar response when I first heard her say that, and then immediately promote her, like $47 minimum. You can also go up. You can give her more money. It's feel free. Webinar for people to sign up and pay for. Like, of course, you're trying to claim it's racist to call people a race grifter while race grifting to cover your own butt, basically. All right, everybody, that's it for today's show. Please do comment and let me know what you think of any of the topics I discussed or of this new series in general. I'll definitely read the comments. I'll even consider reading a few of them on air again in tomorrow's episode. And with that, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that business, and I'll see you all next time.